Has anyone ever asked you a question about your faith or about God and you just kind of didn't know what to say? I remember my boys just recently asked me on a camping trip, why did God make mosquitoes? And I really didn't have an answer because I can't stand mosquitoes and I always have a big problem with them. And that's a good question. But we're gonna be asked questions by people that are gonna be tough to answer. Did God make cancer? Why did God allow my child to die? Why doesn't God just show himself? Why doesn't he make himself apparent to us? Have you ever gotten this one? Do you really think Jesus is the only way to heaven with all of the religions in the world? The Bible actually says in Peter that we should always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. We're supposed to be prepared to have an answer. We should, as Christians, we should have something to share with people. Our faith is not a private matter that we should just keep to ourselves. We have to be ready to help people with their hard questions. We need to be able to reach out to people, to love people. We want to serve them, and part of that is answering tough questions. We're not going to have all the answers, but we should have something to say. Now, what is the biggest question that a person can ask? Just think about that for yourself. Probably, arguably, the biggest question that anyone can ask: does God exist? Is he real? Is he real or not? This is something that every person ought to seriously ask themselves, right? It's not something that we should be moderately interested in also. Either God is not real, and we should not waste our time pursuing that or revolving our lives around that, or he is real and it changes everything about life. It changes the way that we look at life. It changes the way that we live, our purpose, what happens to us when we die. So we need to have something to say about this major question: does God exist? So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about 5 strong reasons to believe that God exists and how we can share that with people. Now, it's no use if we can't remember what we've taught. So I've put together a little color-coordinated mnemonic device here. I'm going to pass these cards out at the end. You can take a couple and put them in your wallet. But basically, we're going to talk about 5 reasons to believe in the existence of God, and we're going to coordinate those with the 5 colors that you see on this card, okay? So that when we think of red or green, it'll jog our memory and help us through this. Okay, so let's talk about our first one. Yesterday was Sunday night, and every Sunday night around 10 p.m., I'm taking out the trash. I have everything all together, and actually I kind of like it. I'm rolling out the trash can to the front of the street, and it's quiet on the street. And usually each time, as I set the trash can down, I look up at the stars, and just for a second, I just kind of am reminded again, someone made all this. Today was, when I was driving into work this morning, was the first snow of the year, and somebody made this, and it was beautiful. You ever ask yourself, why is there something rather than nothing? One of the biggest scientific developments of the modern era is that we have very strong evidence to believe that the universe, listen carefully, that the universe was not always around, but it actually had a beginning. And before this beginning, there was nothing. No space, no matter, no asteroids, stars, anything. No vacuum, not even the color black. I mean, there was nothing. Now, whatever begins to exist, and the universe appears to have had a beginning, whatever begins to exist has a cause. What is that cause? Christmas time is starting to come around, and so that means endless reruns of Christmas Vacation, right? You remember that with Chevy Chase? Do you remember the part where Chevy Chase, in the very beginning of the movie, where he's kind of like hanging, he's falling off the roof, he's hanging on the gutter, and a big icicle rolls out, and it goes through the air, and it goes into the neighbor's house, it crashes through their window, this long icicle, and it messes up their stereo and all of that. And anyway, the couple comes home late at night after a night out, and they're just mystified at what's going on, and the wife says, what happened, and the husband says, I don't know, I wasn't here. And she says, well, something had to break the stereo, something crashed through the glass, and why is the floor wet? And, whatever begins to exist, and in this case it was a mess, it had a cause. What is the cause of the universe? And what kind of cause could be beyond time, beyond matter, and be itself uncaused? I think that is God. Now, as Christians, if we are honest with ourselves, God is pretty mysterious. I have wished many birthdays that God would just audibly say something to me, that I would know beyond a shadow of a doubt that He is real and that He's up there. We're left with two very mysterious choices in this world to believe how the universe arose. And I want to ask you, which is easier to believe? That everything we see and know, the entire universe, that it all appeared out of nothing without a cause, or that an uncaused being like God said, let there be light, and created everything. Both are mysterious choices, but I think one is easier to believe. The Bible says that by faith we understand that the entire universe was formed at God's command, that what we now see did not come from anything that can be seen. This goes exactly with what we were talking about the universe arising out of nothing. In other words, we believe that it was God who created everything without anything to begin with. So we're coming to our first color on our card. When we think of the color black, I want you to think of the universe, the cosmos, kind of the color of space. And allow black to remind you that the universe had a beginning. So say that to yourself. The universe had a beginning. Okay, that's the black color. Okay, let's keep moving. We're talking about creation. What part of creation amazes you specifically? Maybe it is the stars and the scope of the universe. Maybe it's your child at home, or how a baby can develop in a mother's womb. Maybe it's an animal or something. Or, something that always amazes me is when you look closely at us under a microscope, we're made up of multiple cells all working together to be one atom. Now, when we were first conceived, you're talking two cells, one from the male, one from the female, coming together to form one cell. And that one cell becomes two cells, two identical cells. That's what you are. Those two would become four. Those four would become 8 to 16 identical cells. They're all the same. Those 16 would become 32. You are 32 cells. Then you'd become 64 identical cells. Then 128. And I think that's about as far as my math will go. But you get the picture. And at some point in this cellular growth, some of these cells become a femur. Some of these cells become part of the heart. Other cells become part of the cranium, the skull. All of these cells were the same. Who's running the show? How does all of that happen? David the psalmist said, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Now, if there is no God, let's pretend for a second, then everything that we see, cells, the universe, the beauty of nature, all of it is just made by random chance. And ask ourselves, is that really possible? Let's say you were doing some laundry and you threw a bunch of wet towels into the dryer, put it on for 45 minutes, let it go, and then you come down maybe 40 minutes later and it's still tumbling. And you decide to open it up. And when you open it up, they're all perfectly folded. Could that happen? And you would say, absolutely not. Well, the odds of the universe coming together as it is, our bodies, nature, everything, is so much more improbable than the folded towels. The universe is so finely tuned to enable life on Earth. Earth is this oasis in a hostile universe. I mean, we're barely held alive today, the distance we are from the sun. And the odds of this happening randomly make winning the lottery multiple times in a row look like a sure thing. There was a famous atheist. His name was Anthony Flew, and he passed away, I don't know, maybe about 8 years ago. Anthony Flew, he made his whole career out of promoting atheism. He was an Oxford professor. He kind of hung out with C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien back in those days, past the turn of the century. He was an atheist, and he was good at it. And he's actually considered the world's most influential atheist. Anthony Flew, in the last half decade of his life, he went against his entire career, and he changed his mind. Now, he didn't go to church, and he didn't have some religious experience, some emotional experience. Just based on the data alone, he knew that he just had to follow the evidence wherever it leads. He's led a whole career of that, and he now believed, based on the fine-tuning of the universe, the DNA of how we're built, there had to be a creator. Let's think for a moment again, if there was no God, and let's just see what we have here. Okay, so there's no God. So in the beginning, there was no beginning. There was absolutely nothing. We've already covered that. And out of nothing, without a cause, comes a universe. That's already hard enough to swallow. Let's just say that could happen. There's no God. Out of nothing, the whole universe comes into being. When the universe came into being, there was a very dense core of matter, and it was extremely hot and exploded at a fast rate. And basically, you had a lot of hot rocks exploding outward to form the universe. And these rocks were huge. I mean, the size of planets and stars, and in over millions, billions of years, I don't know, these hot rocks start to cool down. And over enough time, these non-living rocks, pieces of matter, become living. Non-living to living matter. Maybe it's just like a little protein or a single-celled organism, but non-living hot rocks become living things. And then over enough time, these living proteins, single-celled organisms evolve, and then evolve to the extent that they now are able to think, and they have emotions, and they are self-aware. They're able to fall in love. Now let's sum all this up. So without God, out of nothing comes hot rocks that fall in love. Does that make sense? Without God, I think that's a tough pill to swallow. The world just doesn't look like a random accident. Everything we see appears to be made, doesn't it? And there is undeniable order to the universe. The complexity of the cosmos, nature, our bodies, our minds, it all points to a creator. The Bible says this, that since the creation of the world, God's power has been clearly seen from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. So now, that's the second reason to believe that God exists. And I want you to think of the color green. Green just kind of representing trees and growth and nature. Green, creation has a designer. Creation has a maker. So we have black, the universe came out of nothing. And we have green, creation has a designer. Everything appears to be made. Let's keep moving. I remember when my firstborn was very young, he was a baby, and my wife and her mom, they took our son to go have some baby photos taken. And my wife, Carrie, called me on the phone and said, hey, we had the cutest baby pictures taken. And I said, oh, yeah? Tell me about it. And she said, well, they actually dressed him up as, like a little ladybug and then a bumblebee, and I wasn't liking where this was going. And they even dressed him up as a little cabbage. And I just thought to myself, you don't do that to little guys. That's just wrong. I don't like that at all. And in the end, I saw the baby pictures, and they were actually pretty nice. And now we, poke fun at our son, and we show them to him, and we all have a laugh. But, in one day, I went from thinking that something was wrong, and you just don't do that, to, hey, that's nice. I like that. There's some things in life that are debatable about whether they're right or wrong. But here's the question. Are there things that are definitely right and definitely wrong? Are there moral absolutes, things that are truly right and wrong, regardless of what anyone thinks? Yeah. When we hear of a child that's being abused or someone that's been raped, these senseless shootings that we see in the high schools, this breaks our hearts. It angers us. We collectively feel, as a society, that's wrong. You just don't do that. The Nazis, the Holocaust, what they did to the Jews, Polish, Russians, when they were tried after the war in Nuremberg, they were tried not for what they did to the Polish people or what they did to the Jews. They were tried for crimes against humanity, crimes against people in general. Now let me ask you this question. If the Nazis had killed off everyone that disagreed with them, would they still have been wrong? Absolutely. You just don't do that. Now again, let's pretend for a moment that there is no God. If there is no God, what's so special about what we think? I mean, we're just the products of a random universe. What we do or think is really of no consequence or importance. We're no different than any other rock, asteroid in the universe. We're just a little bit more complex. So someone that decides to hurt or kill another person on that distant blue planet we call Earth, well, it may not be socially acceptable or advantageous for them in their life, but there's really nothing wrong with it if there's no God. Morality just kind of becomes an illusion. Everything's going to die in the end and go away forever. What's it matter? If there's no God, all behavior is permissible. All behavior is no different than preferring chocolate over vanilla ice cream. Whatever you think. This goes against everything we feel, doesn't it? You ever noticed all the superhero movies that have come out in like the past 10 years? I mean, you got Man of Steel, you got Batman, two kinds of Batmans, two series of Spider-Mans, you got Iron Man, Incredible Hulk. Why do we like those movies? Why do kids like those movies so much? Is it because we like seeing fighting or superpowers? You know what it really comes down to? We love to see good beat evil. We love to see good triumph over what is wrong. Even people that don't believe in God believe in these basic moral laws, don't they? What is the source of these moral laws? Why are these moral laws built into us? Where did they come from? They come from God. In Romans, Paul says, the Gentiles, and these are the people that did not have the law and knew about God, and they were speaking to them about God, and they said, even the Gentiles who do not have God's written law, they show that they know his law when they instinctively obey it, even without ever having heard it. They demonstrate that God's law is written in their hearts. When you think of the color white, I want you to think of morality. White kind of representing purity, righteousness, that which is true. There is morality. There can't be morality without God. So we have black, the universe came out of nothing. We have green, there is a designer, a maker. And then we have white, yeah, there is a definite right and wrong. There is morality. Here's a book I picked up a while back. This is Religion for Dummies. I'm just going to read you the first paragraph. If you travel to some remote part of the earth and find a group of people who have never met anyone outside their tribe, you'd discover that these people have some type of food, some type of shelter, and some type of language. The group would also have some kind of religion, which is one of the basic parts of human life. We, the human race, we are naturally spiritual beings. We're spiritually inclined. We are drawn to the idea of God. Has been this way all throughout history. Why is this so strong in us? Just last week, a recent Oxford University study came out saying that humans aren't necessarily taught to believe in God. Actually, they instinctively believe in God. If there was no God, in reality, we're no more or less important than a can of Coke. We don't feel that way, do we? We feel like we are more than matter, more than just a group of cells. You know, sometimes it's logical to just set aside logic just for a little bit and go with your gut, go with your heart. And what does that tell us? It tells us that there is something that you can't see about me under a microscope, a part of me that is immaterial. I just feel that way. And if we're honest with ourselves, it's the most important part of us, isn't it? Our personality, our will, our emotions, our heart, our soul. That's what it means to be a person. We fear death. Why is that the case? We want to live forever. Why? The answer is it's because we were made to. In Ecclesiastes, Solomon said this, that God has set eternity in the hearts of man. We want to live forever. We're made to be that way. God is in us. We can't just be molecules and atoms. I just can't believe that that's true. Science can't begin to explain how evolution could ever produce a sense of consciousness or self-awareness. From the earliest human history, man has been drawn to something bigger than himself, beyond himself, a life beyond just this. We are spiritual beings. So I want you to kind of think of the color gold or yellow and just kind of maybe think of heaven, okay? And allow that to remind you that there's a part of us that's just beyond matter. We're spiritual beings. We have spirit. We have a soul. So we have black, the universe came out of nothing. Everything that has a beginning has a cause. That's God. We have green. Creation appears to have a designer. It appears to be made. We have white. There is morality. There can't be any morality without God. And then we have gold or yellow, and we're spiritual beings. We feel that way. We believe that about ourselves. We want to live forever. Let's come to our last reason to believe that God exists. A friend sent this to me. This is a Jesus action figure. My boys are always begging me to open it up, and I save it for presentations like this. It actually has rollers on the bottom so that he can roll forward, I guess maybe appear a little more holy than that. And I don't know if there are other figures in the set or not, if there's the disciples or Satan or anything else, but I have the Jesus action figure. On the back it says this. It says, the name Jesus means God saves. The term Christ is a title for anointed of God. For Muslims and some Jews, Jesus was a prophet. Buddhists say that he was enlightened. Hindus call him an avatar, the incarnation of God in human form. And Christians believe that he's the Son of God. So who was he? There is strong evidence that God was revealed in the man named Jesus. The Bible makes hundreds of prophecies about Jesus that were fulfilled. He said unbelievable things, unacceptable things like, I've always existed. I am the source of life. See if you can find any sin in me. I and God were one. Jesus actually said that he is what every person in the world needs. and that through him was the only path to heaven. Now, the things that Jesus, said, it doesn't prove that Jesus was God, but why was Jesus and why is he still respected for saying such things? No one else would ever get away with saying something like that. The reason why is that Jesus proved himself. He healed people. He ruled over nature. He beat death. And people saw it. People were there to testify about this. His disciples went to the death defending Jesus. Jesus was unlike any other teacher, unequaled wisdom. His words are the world's best seller. The world has never been the same since Jesus. Our calendar revolves around his birth. Jesus is the most famous person to ever walk the earth. Millions of lives have been changed and transformed by the power of Jesus. You never hear of atheism healing someone from alcoholism. Jesus, he is the kind of person we would expect God to be like. He said the kind of things that we would expect God to say. What he has to say makes total sense of the world. And it's been 2,000 years. We're still praying to him. We're still finding hope in him. People are finding new life in him every day. At one point, when John the Baptist was in prison, he sent some people to ask Jesus, hey, are you the one? Are you the one? And Jesus told them to go tell John, tell him what you've seen. The blind see. The lame, they walk. Lepers are cured. The deaf hear. The good news about me is being preached. And God is blessing all of those that are not offended by me. He was the one. God was revealed in Jesus Christ. So the color red, which would be the last in our 5 reasons, allow that to make you think of the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, the blood of Christ that covered the sins of humanity. Red, Jesus was revealed in God. So we have 5 colors. Black, the universe came out of nothing, had to have a cause. The universe had a beginning. We have green, creation has a designer. Everything appears to be made. There is morality, that's white, remember that? Absolute morals find its beginning in God. Yellow or gold, we are spiritual beings. We believe that about ourselves. And then red, God was revealed in Jesus Christ. These are some things that we can share with people when they ask us the most important question in the world. Now, make sure that you share this, with love and with grace. We got to be real. We got to be transparent with people. We can never reason people to faith. Only God can change hearts. Service and kindness will always speak louder than words. And we can't act like we have all the answers. Life is a mystery, and God is very mysterious. But I would ask you today, share with people how Jesus has made a difference in your life. If you believe what you say, you'll have an impact. Let's share this with people.